Welcome aboard to the January CM Builder User Workshop. We try to do this once a month. We had a bit of a delay since the last one due to the holiday season, but hopefully we can kind of keep this cadence going for 2023, probably the last week or two of each month. We get together and go through all the latest and greatest things. What we're trying to do is compile questions we're getting from users, the overall themes for we're talking a lot about drones and drone scanning lately. It's been a big topic for not just us, but the construction industry at large. So we're going to be focusing a lot on that. And of course, how to get more out of the subscription or the platform now, but also kind of set yourself up for what's coming. So we touch a little bit on what's coming new and how these workflows are going to change with new improvements we're pushing to the platform. So I'm sure everyone knows Pedro, but Pedro will take it away from here, customer success manager and part-time DJ. Pedro, please take it away. Last thing. If you have questions, Q&A throughout the event, you don't have to wait till the end. Just pop it. There's a little Q&A thing at the top here. Pop it in the Q&A, and I'll be the kind of moderator taking questions. So if in the middle of something, if you're like, hey, I got a question, just throw it in there. We disabled everyone's cameras and voice just to make sure things aren't so chaotic. So just pop in the Q&A, and I will cut off Pedro and go from there. All right, Pedro, take it away.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, so just like Javi said, it was a great pleasure to be here with everyone and do one of these sessions, more of these sessions. So link for the recording will be available in 24 hours. We're going to send this to you right away. And I also invite you all to check our previous workshops on YouTube. We have like a lot of good stuff in there for you to learn more about the product itself. Right, so a little bit of the agenda that we're going to go through today. So we have some new updates on the resource settings and how you can manage them on the timeline. And I want to make sure that everyone knows all of those like little adjustments that you can do. We're also going to touch base on the things that you can import from a drone scan. Not necessarily a drone scan, but like any aerial imagery that you have available in scans and point clouds. So I'm going to go through those parts. Performance tracking, what are the main things that people usually have issues with performance and how to adjust your settings to fit your computer video exports. So like we have a new feature right now that you can export a video right away from SceneBuilder. So like it's a good one. A couple of tips and tricks, minor things that usually we deploy and not everyone knows about it. And we want to make sure that everybody knows about it. I'm going to touch base on new features. There is one specific feature that's coming that I'm super excited about it. I've been talking about this for a long time with people right now, and I'm going to show it towards the end. And then we're going to go right into the Q&A session. Okay.
So just to cut you off, so for anyone who just joined, we will do a dedicated Q&A at the end. So if you want to hold your questions at the end, that's fine, but you don't need to. You can just pop your questions as we go into the Q&A chat, and I'll take it from there.
Cool. Yes. So I'm gonna open our. Actually, I need to close my slideshow over here for a second, and I'm gonna open my my scenario that I usually use for these presentations. It's a scenario that is already made with like a couple of like steps throughout the way, right? So it's a scenario that has excavation, detailed excavation, a lot of resources in it, and so on and so forth. And I just want to show today, I'm going to go back over here to my initial milestone. And I'm going to show today what we have in terms of like resource settings and the new things that we have available, right? So I'm going to add two resources over here on my site. It's going to be the same resource. So it's going to be a wheel loader. So over here, so I'm going to put one and hit done, copy and paste, and put the same resource over here. So I'm going to show the difference between these two in a specific thing. So if I click on the move button over here on the top, we have now this option that's called the constant and the dynamic resources. So constant resource in terms of position is a resource that has the same position throughout all the milestones, right? So actually, let me just put my notes over here on the side. Yeah, same positions throughout all milestones. In dynamics, the one that you can change the position over time. So I'm going to set the second one over here to be a dynamic, and I'm going to do the same change on both resources over here, and you see the difference between them. So right now on the first milestone, they have the same position, but if I go to the next milestone over here, let's say the bulk excavation lift, and I move this one, which is set to be constant, into the bottom of the hole. And I do the same thing with this other guy over here, where I'm going to move it to the bottom of the hole as well. And we will see the difference that is going to happen on our milestone, right? So basically, when I hit done, and now I go back and forth, you see that this one on the previous milestone had two different positions, right? So it has one position over here and a position over here, right? That also applies for like the rotation. So if I do decide to rotate this object and go back and forth, you see that at this location and this location, they have different rotations. But the other one that I set up to be constant, it moved for all the other milestones. So in the other milestones, that guy is over here in the bottom of my terrain because that change applied for all the milestones, right? So this is an interesting thing to do. And if you know that your resource is going to have different positions in time, you should set up to be constant. Oh, sorry, to be dynamic right after you add it, right? So if you start making changes and you set it up to be dynamic after, some of those changes might not be recorded because of like how we store this information in backend. So the best practice over here is for you to define them to be dynamic at the moment that you set them up. All resources by default right now is set to be constant because we don't want you to be changing things in between milestones without knowing that, like preventing some errors to happen in the future. Right, so the same idea happens for parameters. So since this guy over here is, just for an example, I'm going to change that. I'm going to delete this one. And I'm going to go into my adjustment functionalities over here. So I'm going to also take this opportunity to show our new position for the handles, right? So like they used to be over here on the top and now they move to the side over here. We are trying to make it consistent for all the features and all the tools to have the handles over there close to the side sheet. So if you want to know more about how you can move things around, you can explore these options over here on the top. And now they also have shortcuts, right? So if I want to change this to rotation, I can simply hit R and then my rotation handles will show up. And if I want to change to a movement, I can hit M, it will change the movement as well. Snapping is S and A is for adjustment, right? So keep in mind that you can quickly move between these actions as you go. Cool. So in terms of like constant and change over time and dynamic parameters, we also have that. But for resources, what happens is that you sometimes want some parameters to be constant and sometimes you want some parameters to be dynamic. So if I go into the bucket angle over here and I set this to be constant, I can put over here to apply to all milestones. And now that parameter is go to a new bucket over here on the top that's called constant and apply to all milestones. So I have two buckets of parameters that I can check them. And whatever is set up over here is going to be the same for all milestones. And let's say that I make a change over here. And whatever is set up over here is going to change through different milestones. So I can flip through the milestones over here as well. So if I do a rotation over here to 17 degrees, and this one is 0, now you can see that if I go back and forth, this is 17 and this is 0, but the others remain over here on the top. It remains the same, 34 for all the milestones. So keep that in mind that every milestone might have different positions and different parameters if you set up them to be dynamic or constant over time. And a way to check what's going on in terms of changes is going over here on your resource timeline. So if I expand this timeline details, which usually it's expanded automatically, you can see whatever is happening in between the milestones when the changes happen, right? So the base rotation is set up to 0 over here, and over here, the base rotation is set up to 17, right? So you can click on these and see what you want, and then define if you want to remove them, the change or not. Cool. So this is it about defining position in parameters in the timeline, constant or dynamic. Okay.
Yeah, maybe do you want to just touch a quick use case or two on where this would be beneficial for either or? I can think of one,
Yes.
like from a crane, if you want to have like from the milestones move, if you want the crane to be kind of moving or a crane jump, perhaps, would that be a good use case?
Yes, for sure. So like, let me go to this crane over here, and then I can see that the milestone that where the crane is installed, all the initial parameters that we have. And then at some point over here, there are some parameter updates. So I can see that the jib length is changing. I can see that the base rotation is changing and the good hook rotation is changing. But in this case, I don't want the jib length to be changing. So of almost always whenever you install a crane, you define the jib length, and that's what's going to happen in throughout the whole process of construction. But we've seen situations where people decide to reduce the size of the jib length at some point to help with the disassembly, right? So if I go over here and click on my adjustments, I can say, for example, that my jib length is not supposed to change. So I'm going to apply this to all my milestones, right? But all the rest is changing. So I can go into a milestone where I need that crane to jump. And let's see what would be that case. So this one over here. So in this case, this is an interesting use case where the actual crane in real life for this project, I had to move to outside of the building floor plan. So for this crane, we had to define the position to be dynamic, right? But that's kind of like an edge case, right? But you see over here that if I go back to my list of parameters, at this point there is a change of the tower height because we want that tower height to be higher and the position as well. Cool. Awesome. Um, Let me go back to the first milestone over here, and I also want to show one specific new feature. This is actually an improvement of a feature that we already had. So let's say that I want to add a new office at this location, right? So every time that I place a resource on my site, I want to like that resource is going to be aligned with the true north, right? So let's say that your true north actually is something like this. So the moment that you place that resource, this is what you saw at first. So now with the new snapping tool, before you had to snap either rotate or move, right? And now we combine those two in a specific option that is just the snapping tool. You can still do the rotation or movement if you want separately, but by default, we set this up to be one single action in where you select a face of your object. So I'm going to get the face of this part over here, and then you select a face of reference. And now that object is going to rotate and move at the same time, right? So it saves you a couple clicks to do that. And then you can find adjust over here with your handles, right? And another thing that we changed as well is how you display your handles. So right now you have these two options. So user define and on part is the same options that we had before, but now they are located over here. And once I change to on part, these options that I'm seeing over here are the global location of that object, right? So I can copy and paste these items like these values over here to other objects if I need to. But when I go into user define, is more like a translation that is happening at the same time at this local position of the object. And we have also the definition of translation increment over here. So for example, if I hit plus on this object, the moment that I select this over here, I see my handle will isolate what is the direction of that movement. And when I hit plus, it will move by the increment that I set over here, right? So it's a second way for you to move things around and adjust them properly, okay? When you hit them on part, you have the same idea over here of increments, but it's applied to the global location. And another feature that we just added is the redefinition of the origin. So when you click on this redefine origin, you can actually set up your handles to be anywhere else, right? So I want my handles to be over here instead of like on my part. Cool. So it's just couple ways for you to move your objects around. It depends where you're looking at and so on and so forth. And we had very positive feedback about these changes, and we plan to apply this to all the other movements that we have in the site, like drawing overlay, massing features, and so on and so forth. So we expect this same logic to be applied to these other objects. Cool. Again, if you have any questions, please shoot them on the QA, so Javi will take them over and like answer anything about that. Okay, so I think that this is it for the new updates on the resources and how you can manage them on your timeline. And now I'm gonna jump in and show a little bit about the new drone scanning import capabilities, right? So I'm gonna use a couple of my presentation over here as uh, to help me, right? So basically, there are three main things that you can import from a drone to Scene Builder. So one is an image for an enhanced background. Two is a 3D model for surrounding references. And three is a point cloud for terrain creation. So these are the three ways that you can bring in your drone data or any other scan data or any other area image data to your site, right? So don't think that it's just about drones. It can be like Google Earth images or other 3D modeling imports. So the first one that I want to touch base in is I already explained this to a lot of our customers, but some of them don't know about this yet. So I thought it would be interesting for us to go through this. So basically, your aerial scan provider can be any one of these companies that are listed over here: Drone Deploy, Pix4D, Propeller, Nearmap, or it can be simply a Google Earth image. And from there, what you need to do is export an orthomosaic image. So for you to get a better reference for your background, that image has to be a flat reference on the ground. So if you get images that have angles, you won't have a proper reference to place that on the ground. Okay, just keep that in mind. So the flattest, the more flat, I don't know what is the word, flattest, that you can flatter, you're flattered. So the flattest image that you can have on your background is the best. So let me go back over here to show an example. So this is an example that I like to use a lot because it shows a reference for a building, and you can import that orthomosaic image by placing them, and you have like something that is way with a way better quality than it was before. And of course, upgraded images with like new references on the side, right? So in this case over here is our old building in our old office. So we did a drone scan over there, and you see that what is the difference between the previous image that we produce automatically and the image that you have as an orthomosaic overlay, right? And the way that you bring this image over here in CM Builder is simply by doing a drawing overlay. The drawing overlay, the name is drawing overlay, but it can be, oh, you can overlay any type of imagery. And then you can use our tools over here to place them around. So you the scale to distance, the 2-point positioning. So this is kind of like a more basic use of the tool. And if you want to know more about that, you can just explore our user guide over here, how to do that, or you can just get in touch and we'll explain in further details to you. Okay. So this is it about orthomosaic overlay. And the next thing is, oh yeah, so I have a bonus tip over here as well. So it is interesting to, sometimes when you do a drone overlay, like a drone scan to take pictures on your site, you won't get like a sharp like cut of an image over here. I've seen situations where people import that into Builder and there is like a white shade around the area because the drone does like a rastering of the area, but it doesn't create like a cropped image. So if that's a situation that you're having on your project, remember that you can import transparency into Builder as well. You just need to define that a specific color to be transparent, right? And there are several ways to do that. I suggest using in free online tool like this one, for example. I use this one a lot, online PNG tools. So you just drop in an image over here, define what is the color that you want to make transparent, and then you bring that into Builder again, and that transparency will be applied. Right, so this is a good way also for you to get rid of like the white on your drawings and things like that. So it's a very interesting way for you to isolate specific things on your drawing or on your image. Cool. So let's go to the next importing reference that we have for drone imagery. So again, from any of your Aerial Scan provider, you should export a 3D model as an OBJ from that platform, and it will be like a 3D model scan. And right now, SceneBuilder cannot yet import OBJ directly. So you need to convert that to an FBX. And there are two main ways that we suggest you to do is either downloading Blender, which is a free software that you can use to do that conversion, or using Recap Photo, which a lot of people have license for that. So we recommend that because it's easier for you to do that. It's like easier for you to isolate the parts that you want, but you can easily be done in Blender as well, right? So showing a little bit of like how Blender. Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, when it says 3D model, we mean SceneBuilder takes the textured mesh file. So a lot of people ask, like, oh, I got a point cloud file. You need to create, you have to mesh the point cloud first before bringing in SceneBuilder. Is that correct? Okay, great.
Yes. And we have in our user guide over here, we have a page that is dedicated to help you with that process. The first part of this user guide is talking about drone deploy. So how you would export that from drone deploy. But from here downwards, the converting to FBX, it can be whatever piece of software you use, right? So like to create that OBJ file, that scan. So you either use Recap Photo, and there is like a great video over here from one of our customers, Ben Stalker. He provided this for us. I really appreciate that. And it's a video of him showing the process of like doing that conversion through Recap Photo, isolating his beauty and so on and so forth.
So big shout out to Ben. Ben's on the call here. I know you're muted there, but thanks. And he was happy to do that and share it back to the community to allow other users to get the benefits. So thanks, Ben. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you, Ben. And this is also like instructions on how to do that using Blender, right? So Blender it's a very powerful software and can be complicated at some points. But if you follow these instructions over here, it's very straightforward. You don't need to divert too much from there, right? So basically, you just import that OBJ file. You're going to see something like this. And from here, you're going to do an export to FBX, right? And the only thing that you need to do basically is if your model is rotated, you can rotate them over here. But the instructions are in our user page. But if you go to the FBX, the most important thing is for you to set this path mode to be copy and also embed the textures into the file, right? So that's the way that we can read these into SceneBuilder. Okay. So I really suggest that you go through either one of these two, Blender or Recap. So the instructions are in our user guide. But if you need any help, I'm here to help.
I guess one thing to just double click on, this is the suggested workflow. We're going to talk after about terrain, but this is more for like, existing conditions, existing buildings, more of like the outside of the building. The next one we're going to get to into terrain is kind of a different workflow. So just keep that in mind.
Exactly. So the bonus tip over here is that is a way for you to, if you don't have a drone scan of your location, or you can't use a drone scan, there is a way for you to export an FBX model directly from Google Maps. You can search online on the YouTube. There are a lot of videos of people explaining that. And it's just like a process that you read those information from your graphics card, put that on Blender, stitch it up together, and then export that as an FBX, and then you can bring that into SceneBuilder. Some of our customers are using this process because they don't have the ways of like scanning every single project, right? So it's a quick way for you to get better references of your surroundings. Cool. The last part of the drone imports that I want to touch base is the point cloud export for terrain creation. So basically from your scan provider, you're going to export a point cloud, and that point cloud can have so many different formats that I cannot list them all over here, but like usually the most used are XYZ, LAS, or E57. So you can export those point clouds from your drone scan provider. And we suggest that you do a pre-processing of those point clouds before you bring them into Builder because of a couple of reasons. One, the point clouds can have a lot of noise that you don't want to bring in. And keep in mind that you're using that point cloud to create a terrain, not to create the surroundings like buildings or trees or anything like that. So you'd have to should try to isolate the points that are referring to your terrain as much as you can. And also try to limit the points up to 10,000 points, because larger than that, it's your computation process starts to take a little bit of a hit, right? So I have an example over here of how a point cloud looks like inside Cloud Compare. Again, Cloud Compare is a free software, so you can download that completely for free. And this is an example of a project of ours where you can import that point cloud and look at something like this. This is an XYZ plus RGB file. So it has the points and it has the colors for each one of them. And from here, I can provide more instruction about this. But basically what you need to do is try to reduce the count of points and also remove the parts that you don't want. So I'm going to do something super quickly over here. I'm going to click on the point cloud, click on the sampling mode, and I'm going to put in random and just put my remaining points to be 10,000. Right? So when I do that, the software removes a lot of these points, and then I can go ahead and remove like more points if I want to by selecting some of these, then removing them. And now I have, like, for example, a point cloud that is with points closer to the ground, right? Of course, I could do a better job over here removing the parts related to trees, to vehicles, and so on and so forth, but it takes a little bit of time, but it's easy to do. You just need to use these two tools over here, the subsample of a point cloud and the segment one. So basically you have to select the point cloud over here on your tree structure and apply one of these actions so you can remove the quantity of points and also cut out whatever you don't want. So an example on how that looks like in CM Builder. So if I import that same point cloud that I showed over there for this location, what I can do is go into my custom terrain tool, which is a tool that is very challenging in terms of like processing and logic. So we are still doing some minor adjustments to it, but it's getting to the point where it's very, very stable and you can use it freely on your projects. The only thing they have to do is go over here in your user preferences and then turn it on the experimental features. So just turn this on over here. And now if I go into my custom terrain, I can add a terrain. And I didn't show this, but from here, you can save this as a CSV file. So you export this as a CSV file, and then you put that CSV file on our template, which looks basically like this. So it's every point and with an XYZ title on the top. And then from here, if I upload this file that I have over here, what's going to show it's going to be, oh, sorry. Let me create a new terrain over here. Upload a file, CSV. Oh, for some reason, it's not showing on this one, but I can show one that I already uploaded, which is this one. So basically it's the same file. I just wanted to show like the way of importing it, but it's the same file of a drone scan of this area. And if I set this as my initial terrain, I can do preview, reset, export over here. There's a lot of stuff related to custom terrain that I don't want to go too much in depth on this right now, but like we will do a specific session for these custom terrain capabilities. So once I hit confirm, my terrain over here is now adjusted to that to those point lines, right? So you see the difference between this terrain over here and this terrain over here. And of course, if you have like a bigger point cloud for like a bigger area, your accuracy of your terrain is going to be better, right? So that's it for drone scan import as a point cloud. So what is my bonus tip over here? Yes, so sometimes your point scan will have geolocated points. So your points will have like a geolocation where they are in the world. So depending where you are, like if you're in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, you're gonna have different standards for geolocation. So we have a table in-house that helps you convert those points to the standard that you are to the standard that we use. And as of now, you can get in touch with us and we'll help you with that conversion. But we plan to have that built in the software itself in the future. Cool. Avi, any comments about this part of drone scan?
No, I just think on that geolocation part, yeah, if you run it's very contextual to the market. So, like I think our standard out of the box is WGS 84, which is like
Mm-hmm.
the most common used coordinate system. However, if you're in New Zealand, like a number of our customers are, New Zealand has their own, standard and their own coordinate system. So we just need to be able to like offset from that, which is what this tool allows. So if you ever run up against a situation, just reach out to us and we can help you kind of convert the points to make sure it all works. And as we over time, we'll continue to support more and more coordinate systems. But for now, this is the way we can handle those edge cases. A quick
Cool,
question
cool.
for you. So Ben asks, are we looking to be able to import the GeoTIFF drone orthomosaic map, but make it imported at the right location, right style? So GeoTIFF, we don't support at the moment. We have to convert. I don't know if this is a Pedro or Javi discussion on this. Pedro, do you know anything about GeoTIFF?
I do, but like at the moment, there's no way for you to bring
Right.
that in directly. So we can, depending on what you have as a reference, we can think about some workarounds. So, but that's already in our roadmap. Like other people have requested this in the past, it's in our roadmap. I'm not sure exactly when we're gonna start working on that, but if more people request it, we will bump it up on the rank
Yeah,
to.
so we can't speak on the technical feasibility of it at the moment, but I know that from that drone scan we showed earlier from our old office, we started with a GeoTIFF.
Yeah.
So we started from there and then work it to something that can bring it to Builder.
Yes. Yes. Cool. So the next step of our workshop today is talking about performance tracking, right? So we have a new feature in CM Builder. It's this guy over here on the top. Like you go into tools and you go to app performance. This is our what we call the performance tracking. You could see from our latest key feature Friday video where like we showed about a little bit about this as well. But not always you're gonna have like all the warnings and things that are like suggestions for you to have a better performance. So I wanted to go through the list that we usually have from different customers, which like what they usually go through, right? So if I open my little table over here, um, our main metrics for performance at the site is how long does it take for your site to load and what is your frames per second in terms of like the visibility, right? So while you're rotating and doing actions and changing from milestone to the other, how long does it take for it? Like, is it choppy? Is it not, right? So these are the main metrics. So the first thing is about model quantity. So the main like if you start importing a lot of models into CM Builder, the loading times for is going to start to increase. It's better if you combine them before you bring into Builder than if you bring in as individual files, right? And also, if you combine them into before you bring into Builder, it's going to save you some time on the positioning for each model. So it's a good way for you to reduce your loading times. Okay. Model complexity is measured by two main things. So one is high triangle count, and two is mesh draw count. So like, no, these are like big words, but triangle count is basically inside one single mesh, inside one geometry, how many, if that does have like a lot of curves or things like that. So if you have like a lot of curves, if the mesh is too complicated, it means that it has a high triangle count. And mesh draw count is how many meshes you have in your file, right? Is it a lot of parts or like not just about the geometry of the parts, but the quantity of the parts, right? So if you simplify the geometry by removing parts and reducing the complexity, so circular shapes or things like that, like parts that you don't necessarily need, like furniture, fixtures, elevator parts, or things like that, If you reduce them, the triangle count is going to go down, and the mesh draw count is also going to go down. So this helps with your performance as well, especially if the frame per second kind of thing. Cool. Scenario graphics is basically what is the scenario settings in terms of visual that you have in place and what can be done inside the platform itself to reduce that. So these are graphic settings that we have in our platform. So let me go back over here and show what are the main ones that we usually use. So if I go over here, we've talked about this before, but sometimes like we like to reiterate that because it affects performance. So basically in our settings, if you go into graphics, you can turn off these four first items over here, and it's going to reduce the graphics a little bit, especially related to the shadows that you have on your screen. So the ground shadow over here, if I turn it off, you're going to see that the shadow of the screen is going to go away. So it takes a while, but that increases performance as well. And the ambient occlusion is just like shadows around the corners of the objects. Also, it takes a little bit of processing time to compute that, right? So if you turn these off, they will like your frames per second will increase slightly. Depending on the complication of you, how complicated your process, your project is, it can really help.
Can I jump in? So
Yep.
one suggestion on that would be it's like while you're working, right? So if you have a situation where while you're working, you don't necessarily need to have extremely high graphics to have it look the nice, especially as you get to larger data sizes. You can do that, and then right when you're done to compile your final deliverable, my always suggestion is to turn some of these back on because it makes it look nicer and more presentable to the client and different teams. But you don't necessarily need that loading all the time while you're working, right? So you can kind of just wait till the very end, turn it back on, and then send you a link or send your deliverable. And another thing I want to say about that, because we get a chance to talk to a lot of people at once, because we were getting, because we're being a web engine that you author and view all in the web, right? This is quite a unique situation here where you have to manage performance constantly on everyone's machine, and everyone's got a different machine with different specs and different graphic cards, etc. So instead of us trying to figure out all these problems, we're trying to give you better data right away from when you go into that tools that it basically reports back to you, detects what machine you have, what settings you have, and if you have stuff turned, you don't see this here because Pedro's got it set up, but like it actually instructs you to go into your Chrome settings and change this, and it'll help. So some stuff that you might not even know you don't have turned on that are actually impacting. For example, unplug your machine for a second. So maybe you probably don't know that if you're not plugged in your laptop, it actually affects performance in most web apps. So as you can see, as soon as he unplugs it, it gives you a little notification, hey, plug it in, baby. I'm not sure who wrote that. but yeah, so it's just trying to give you as much data as fast as you can. So especially a lot of folks here are maybe the administrator at your company, and you might get someone that says, hey, I'm having trouble with this model. What's going on here? You can now use this as a tool on your end to investigate, right? Like, okay, let's take a look at what machine you have and what GPU. Yeah. Sometimes we have found a couple of times where people just didn't even know that they weren't using their dedicated graphics card. They just didn't have it set up. So once you did that, all of a sudden it went up. So anyways, you have the data now to hopefully make better decisions. And of course, if there's any questions, just let us know and we can help suggest solutions to make this better.
Yeah, so the rest of here is basically what Javi already said. Connect the computer to power, turn on hardware acceleration mode on browser settings. So for every browser, you're gonna have something different. We recommend Google Chrome as your main browser, but if you can't, use Safari and Edge. And graphics cards is a big thing. That's more like related to your hardware specs. So you might want to see if you can improve the hardware of your computer to run these projects better, right? You can also check our user guide for additional performance checks, right? So over here in our user guide, you're gonna find under, oh, actually not this one, this one. Under the troubleshooting pages, you can go over here in our improved performance, and there are like a bunch of checks over here that you can do as well on your computer, especially like on your Windows, to see if everything is going smoothly. Okay. Cool. We still have 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go to the next steps of our session over here. So the next part that I want to talk about is video export, right? So the video export is a feature that we have in an experimental stage. So you have to go over here in your user preferences, just turn this part over here, export presentation video on. And when I do that, now I have the ability to go over here and share, and this option is gonna be available. So export video, right? So the way that you use this, before you actually export the video, I suggest that you do some minor tweaks on your presentation. So one is to have your timers for slide duration to be higher, right? Because like the screen moving, like the camera moving can be some choppy at some points because of like you have a lot of stuff going on in your scenario. So if you make this higher as like 7 seconds or something like that and apply to all the slides, you can then bring this video that it has been exported to another software and reduce, increase the speed of the video. So that transition of the camera is going to be a little bit smoother. But this is something that we are also building inside our tool as well. So you won't need to do that soon, right? um, so that one other thing is to not have a needed capture angles. So you see this project over here, it has slides that has camera angles captured to it. So like whenever I see a slide that has a thumbnail, it means that we did a capture camera angle for that. So you don't need to do this for every single slide. You just need to do for the ones that you have like stuff going on and your camera is not there yet. So move the camera, focus on that, and then keep that camera throughout all the slides. So for example, the next slide, things are gonna happen over here and I'm gonna inherit the camera angle that I had before, right? So that is a good way for you to not like keep like flipping your camera around too much. And the last thing that I want to talk about this is that whenever you place in your callouts, if you want to share a link to another person and that person is going to open that on their phone, ideally your callout should be a little bit closer to the middle of your screen, just so you won't be cut from your phone screen if you're looking at it from the sideways or portrait mode, landscape mode. So try to keep it a little bit more closer to the center. Of course, that's not like a rule, it's just like a good practice for you if you want to see that on your mobile. Right. So
Quinn, can I cut you off? Some
yeah.
people might not know because it's fairly new. The cover slide concept. Can you just talk quickly about how you can set, let's say you have one really great shot, or you want to have a certain like cover slide. So you can take any of those, any one of your captured angles and just set it as a cover slide. And that will be the first part of the first of your simulation, the first view that they'll see. And then the simulation will start from there.
In this case over here is the last one, and then you can click over here and set a presentation cover slide. So it will show first on your video, show first on your shared links, and it also is going to define what it looks like on your scenario thumbnail. Cool. Okay, so in terms of like exporting a video, I'm not sure if I'm gonna export a video for this one specifically because it takes it's gonna play the whole presentation, but I'm gonna show how it works. So if I click on export presentation video over here and go next, oh, the recording speed is already over here. Interesting. Nice. I didn't even know that this was deployed. Got surprised, like even me.
That's good. Maybe it's in demo. I think you're in demo, so maybe that. Yeah.
Cool. So now with the export screen, you can define a recording speed. So we suggest that you put like make the recording speed slower so you can speed this up later when in another video editing software. Export formats, we have WebM and MKV. These are the only formats that we have available for now from Google Chrome. So like it's a limitation on the browser. So we plan to find ways to export in the different formats later, but you can use any free online converter tool to bring this to MP4 if you want. And you can also define to hide your milestone dates, right? So this will export the video without the milestone date showing up. So when I hit export, this shows up. I just need to select this tab, and this is kind of like a browser thing that you have to do. You have to select which tab you are sharing, and if I click share, the video will only start recording if I hit play, right? So I need to hit play for this to start recording, and it will go through all the steps of the way and play the whole thing. So you can go take a coffee, drink some water, look at the birds, look at the sky. It's snowing here in Vancouver, so if you go look at the snow, and then once you're done, you can just go back, right? So if I stop sharing over here, um, so it didn't record the video because I stopped, but once it finished the presentation, it will close it automatically, and it will download your video on your browser. So you have a video for you to work with, put in your presentations, and so on and so forth. Cool. So we still have like 15 minutes. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
try
Pedro,
to
can I ask
be
another
super
question
quick.
about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because of the format, so basically we're using a browser-based format. You have some tips. There's some ways to convert those formats to like MP4 and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I usually use a free online converter tool. So like if I do like MKV to MP4 over here, I'm gonna find like a video converter, which is basically you just bring that MKV over there, convert to MP4. It's super simple and you don't have to pay anything. Right? So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There are a
And
lot of
intentions to support other file
Mhm.
formats in the future. This is as part of the experimental phase to get it out, get it working, get feedback, and
Yeah.
then add more file types in the future.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to are you good with that part of the video export? Can I go to the next step?
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
a little bit worried
I
about
was
a little bit worried about the time over here.
no problem.
So new things that we also did in terms of tips and tricks. So if I any input for values that I have on my software now, I can now do a math operation over here. So if I want to move this by 5 meters, and for some reason I'm going to do 10 minus 5, I can do that, and it will only move by 5 meters, right? This is interesting whenever you want to set things up to a specific elevation that you know where is the elevation of that object. So for example, let's say that this object over here, actually its elevation is supposed to be to move by I don't know, if I place it over here by mistake and I know that I need to bring it to a specific value, I can measure the value in which that elevation, that object is. So for example, this is right now on 1.38 and I want to bring this to 2 meters, right? So what I do, I can just move it by 2 minus 1.38 and it will bring it to 2 meters, right? So this is a good way of using this tool. It's a very minor kind of thing, but it helps you like say not bring out your old calculator to your desk every time that you're using Simulator. So yeah, it's a good way of doing that. The next tip that I want to talk about today is the CSV import for schedule creation. I'm actually
Can I cut
going.
you off?
Yeah.
One thing that many people don't, can you just drag that back up again? Some people may not know. If you right click, you can just say drop to map to. Let's say you have something floating ever. I'm not sure if everyone knows this. Drop to surface, just click that, boom. So let's say you just have something that's off a little bit, and you instead of like trying to eyeball it and bring it down, just hit drop to surface, and it'll go right down to the map.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Other minor improvement that we've done recently is the commenting feature. So now we have the resolve button over here. So instead of deleting whenever that comment is resolved, we can just go in and set up to this to be resolved, right? So and that will keep like a history of the process of the comments that you had. You can bring them back if you want, and so on and so forth. So like you can do unresolved and the comment is back in. Cool. So it's a good way for you to work in the different times with your team. There's another input over here that I think is very interesting, and I learned about this the other day, is let's say that you're gonna use this area over here as your storage area. So if I want to play around with my scenario over here, and I for some reason decided this is a storage area, I can hit that in, and now with my 3D label tool, I can place a label in here, and this text input reads emojis. right? So if I hold Windows and period, it will open my emoji kind of like a screen over here, and I can put in, for example, a package, and now that will show up in there. So I can use these as like visual enhancements of the site and project that on my terrain now. So that is now my staging area if I want to use emojis as my main thing. But not just that. Let's say that if I place over here a fire hydrant at this location, right? So if I put over here fire hydrant, the fire hydrants in SimBuilder are built to scale. So at this view, you can almost not see that. So you can also use your 3D labels to put in your fire sorry, let me delete this over here. And then you can have fire, safety, whatever. So like something like that, a fire extinguisher, for example, right? So this is a way for you to also communicate with your team that there is a fire measurement tool, oh, sorry, a fire safety measure over there. Cool. So when you look at it from the top, it's clear that you have like something going on over here. Cool. Yes.
This feature can also be commandeered to do other silly things, like our dev team often does. So adding other types of emojis into the 3D labels, like frowny faces and thumbs ups.
Yeah, I also like to use that as arrows. So if I want my arrows to be projected on the ground, I can just put in over here like a specific arrow thingy over here going on, project that on the ground, remove that, can set up a like a size of it, and so on and so forth. Right. So if you're working with topographic terrains and the arrows that are in our site are not good enough because they're being inside of the terrain, you can use that as well to project that on your site. Cool. Okay. The last thing that I want to show today, I think that hopefully I'm going to have some time, but is the new feature that we have coming soon. So I prepare like a small scenario over here where we're going to define a specific yeah, webinar is live now. Click here to join. Okay, cool. I didn't see this banner before. So this is our new feature that I'm very excited about, is the milestone mapping to buildings, right? So the building parts are now gonna be mapped to milestones. Instead of like hiding and showing them in different moments in time, you're gonna actually assign them to a milestone. So let's say that I have a specific set of milestones over here. I was supposed to import a CSV file to show this, but like I think that we don't have a lot of time to do it. I just gonna go ahead and put like some milestones.
So what I was trying to get Pedro to do, because not everyone here is using the schedule import, but we were going to just show like a quick, like if you don't have a full-on P6 schedule or Power Project schedule, you can just upload Excel now, and then was going to create the milestones and then show you how you can do that. But don't worry about it, Pedro. I know you're trying to cram it in 7 minutes.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, I can do it. Like, so if I like save this CSV file over here with the names of my milestones and the dates, I can save this now. And let me just delete what I just done over here with my milestones. And I can quickly import that file over. So if I upload the file that I just downloaded over here, it will give me the exact same dates that I used, and I can bring them in SimBuilder right now, right? So basically, I didn't have a P6 or a MS project schedule, and what I'm doing is I'm just creating like my milestones from a table, right? So I downloaded a CSV template, putting my dates in there, and then my tasks. Right, so let's go and work with this. So now I'm kind of like going to work from like setting up these items over here. So let's say that I want to define that on my last milestone, the south of this building is going to be concluded at this stage. So I'm going to right click and say begin from this milestone. So it means that now all those parts are going to be executed on that milestone. And I can see them over here. If I edit the model element, I can see the milestone in which that element is assigned to, right? So this is a way for us to build more stable sequencing. And it's more also coherent with the way that we do resources and other elements in the tree. And let's say, for example, I forgot to put this guy over here. I can simply go and edit that and then assign it to the last milestone. And now that object is gone, right? So I can do the same thing with all the other elements over here. So I'm gonna assign the last part over here to this milestone and the south all the way to level 9 as well. So you can hold control to do a lasso selection and then have these over here begin from this milestone. So now if I go back and forth, so you see, because I assigned those parts to that milestone, if I go back, those objects haven't been executed yet, right? So I can easily visualize like what's going on over here. And this guy also has to, actually, this guy has to start at this milestone. So I can quickly do that kind of stuff. And everything that I do as a hide and show, I can, if I hide them over here, it's going to be a temporary hide. So I can temporary hide. Now if I go back and forth, these parts are going to show up again because there's a temporary hide, right? So this is a good way for you to start connecting elements to your milestones and quickly create these sequences, right? So if I go back now, my level south from this stage over here, what I have. So this part over here is going to be done at this milestone, and all the way to level 5 is going to be done at this milestone, right? So begin at this milestone. So now I have like these chunks of work that's being done over here. So it's a quick and easy ways for you to set up your sequence, and is also the first step for us to build like a more capable 4D simulation tool. Cool. So if I do this quickly over here, and then I do this part over here.
One thing as Pedro's doing that, you might notice the lasso select will select the first item of its type and then go on there. So if the first thing you hit is the model and then you drag it, it won't pick the resources in surrounding buildings. Just keep that in mind. So
Yep.
that's whereas if you hit the buildings or you hit the resources first, it'll select all of those other elements in that category in that type. So this has been a big feedback from users all over the place, just better sequencing from the model based on what we have now. And so we're excited about pushing this improvement in the next, hopefully, we don't have any product people on the call, do we? Hopefully in the next week or so, if we pass QA, all the QA checks.
Yeah, so this is a quick way to do that, and also allows you to assign with parts of your model to milestones without actually having to be active on that milestone. So for example, if I want to assign this over here to the next milestone, instead of going to that milestone and showing that part, I also will be able to, I can simply go over here and say, this is actually happening on the next milestone, right? So it's a very interesting way to create those sequences, and it makes it way more stable because you will be dealing with things that you're selecting and seeing right away. And also the propagation that you have for these parts, the visibility of these parts is easier for you to manage. Cool. There are a lot of things that we will start doing in terms of like sequencing once this feature is deployed. So we're going to have like color coding, and you're going to be able to see what are the parts that you already assigned, the parts that you have not yet assigned, what is in the past, what is in the future. So it's a very interesting way for you to highlight elements on your tree structure.
Awesome. So
Cool.
last thing we were going to try to stuff in, but we may have seen it if you watch Key Feature Friday, is the surface capabilities. We're working hard on for the terrain prep is bringing in a surface file and then adjusting the full terrain to match the whole surface. So right now we have points, right? CSV file has points. So
Mhm.
importing the whole surface and then making the terrain match the surface is also something we're working on. Considering we're at the time here, I just wanted to stuff that one in.
That and also the new support management tool that we are implementing. So like this is coming very soon. So we will have a better way to manage the tickets that are coming from the customers, and also you'll be able to see the history of like the things that you requested and to keep track about the communication that you have with our support team. We are very excited to roll this out because it's going to make our support team more efficient as well, and have you guys all cared for.
Yeah, instead of just having to follow up on the feedback and the emails and stuff, you just have a chat that you can go back to and be like, okay, where's my crane? And then you can just
Mhm.
chat back and forth. Um, so we're at time. We'll hang out for another few minutes. If there's any questions here, pop them in here. If not, support@cmbuilder.io, support@cmbuilder.io. Feel free to just plug away, or at the top of the product inside the help file, you can hit contact us, submit your question from there.